There comes a moment, a quiet, powerful moment, when she realizes something she never expected. She can't control you anymore, not through silence, not through words, not through emotions. And that moment changes everything. See, most men don't even recognize when they're being controlled. Not because they're weak, but because they're too focused on pleasing, proving, or holding on. But a man who understands his worth, who lives by his own standards, becomes untouchable. Not because he's cold, but because he's grounded. That's the mindset of a Stoic man, calm-centered, unmoved by anything he doesn't control. Today, I'm going to show you exactly when she knows that her influence over you is gone, and why that's when real respect begins. Let's get into it. Number 1, you stop reacting. You stop reacting. You start responding. The first sign you no longer react emotionally. She tries to trigger you, maybe with a comment, a delay, or a shift in tone. But instead of snapping or chasing, you pause and respond with calm. This is when she realizes you're not controlled by impulse anymore. Like the Stoics taught, the man who masters his emotions masters his life. Think about it. How many times in the past did you find yourself caught in that trap? A sudden cold text, a playful tease that felt more like a test, or moments when she pulled away just to see if you'd come running. Before your emotions probably dictated your next move, you'd react instantly, maybe with frustration, over-explaining yourself, or trying to fix something that wasn't even broken. But now you've shifted. You've embraced the mindset of a man who doesn't hand over control of his peace to anyone, not even to her. When you stop reacting, you send a silent but powerful message. I am in charge of me. And that shakes her more than any argument or emotional outburst ever could. You see, women instinctively sense when they can push emotional buttons. And when those buttons no longer work, it's the moment she knows she can't control you. Imagine this. She sends a vague message, maybe something like, "It's funny how people change clearly fishing for a reaction." The old you might have jumped in, asking what she meant, trying to decode every word. But now you see it for what it is, a test of your emotional discipline, so you respond if needed with steady energy, or better yet, you let silence speak when words aren't necessary. That's when it hits her. She realizes that her games, her tests, her attempts to pull you off balance, they no longer have power, and that realization changes everything. Because a man who responds instead of reacts isn't just harder to control. He's impossible to control. And here's the beauty of it. You're not doing this to manipulate or win. You're doing it because you've outgrown the need to prove anything. You've learned that real strength isn't loud, it's quiet, composed, and unshakable. When you reach this level, you don't just gain her respect, you command it without saying a word. Number 2, her silence no longer. Her silence no longer scares you. Remember, when a late reply or a sudden cold shoulder would make you spiral. Not anymore. Now when she pulls away or goes quiet, you don't panic, you carry on. Why? Because you've accepted what Epictetus said. Some things are up to us. Some things are not her silence, not your concern. Your peace stays intact. There was a time when every unread message felt like a storm brewing in your mind. When she didn't respond, you'd overthink, replaying every conversation, wondering what you did wrong, what you should say next to pull her attention back. That fear, the fear of losing her interest, of being ignored, used to control you. But that version of you is gone. Now when she goes silent, you don't chase the noise. You embrace the quiet because you understand something powerful. Her silence isn't a reflection of your worth. It's simply her choice. And you no longer try to control what isn't yours to command. This is where true freedom begins. Not in getting constant attention, but in no longer needing it to feel secure. A Stoic man doesn't measure his value by someone else's response time. He knows that his day, his mood, and his mindset aren't dictated by whether or not a message arrives. You see, when you detach from that anxiety, when you stop seeing her silence as a threat and start seeing it as just space, everything shifts. She expects you to react to double text to ask if something's wrong to prove you care by chasing her withdrawal, but instead you remain steady. You continue focusing on your life, your goals, your path unbothered. That's when she feels it. The moment she realizes that her pulling away no longer pulls you down, that her distance doesn't create panic, it creates opportunity. Opportunity for you to grow, to thrive, and to show without a word that you are a man grounded in himself. You can't control when she speaks, but you can control how you interpret that silence. And when you treat it with indifference, not bitterness, not ego, just calm acceptance, you become untouchable. If this message resonates with you, take a moment to like this video. It helps spread this mindset to more men who need it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you noticed this shift in yourself? How did it change the way you handle silence or distance? Drop your experience in the comments or simply type, "I control my mind, not her actions," if you're embracing this stoic strength. Now let's move forward and explore what truly happens when you stop reacting and start leading with calm, unwavering confidence. Number 3. You say no. You say no without explaining, When you start saying no without feeling guilty or needing to justify yourself, she feels it. You're no longer bending over backward to keep her happy. A stoic man knows that his boundaries don't need to be explained, they need to be respected. And when you live like that, control slips right through her fingers. Think back to how it used to be. You'd get a request, a favour, or maybe even subtle pressure to do something you didn't really want to do. But instead of standing firm, you'd hesitate, then agree. And if you ever dared to say no, it was followed by a long explanation. Trying to soften the blow, hoping she wouldn't get upset or lose interest. That wasn't strength. That was fear disguised as politeness. Now things are different. You've realised that every time you over-explain your no, you're indirectly asking for permission to have standards. But a man who knows his worth doesn't ask. He decides you say no because it doesn't align with your values, your time, or your peace. And that's reason enough. This shift is powerful because women can sense when a man is acting from fear versus when he's acting from principle. When you say no, calmly, confidently, and leave it at that, she's confronted with something rare. A man who doesn't negotiate his boundaries just to stay in her good graces. And that unsettles her, because control thrives in guilt and hesitation. The moment you remove those, she realizes she no longer has the leverage she once did. Stoicism teaches us that external approval is fleeting, but inner discipline is forever. Seneca once said, "A man is unhappy, though he reigns the world, if he does not consider himself happy." In other words, it doesn't matter how much you please others. If you're constantly betraying yourself to do it, you lose. A stoic man doesn't live to appease. He lives in alignment with his own code. So when she asks you to change plans last minute to tolerate behaviour you're not okay with, or to prioritise her whims over your responsibilities, and you simply say, "No, that doesn't work for me," without flinching, without justifying, that's when the dynamic shifts. She sees that emotional pressure, disappointment, or silence won't sway you anymore. You're no longer the man who bends, you're the man who stands. And in that quiet firmness, she realises she can't control a man who respects himself more than he fears losing her. Number 4, you don't chase closure. You don't chase closure. You create it. She expects you to ask why or what happened. She's prepared for the questions, for the long conversations, where you search for answers, hoping to make sense of her distance, her change, or her decision to pull away. But when that moment comes, and you don't seek closure from her, when you quietly decide it's over in your own mind, without needing explanations, That's when she knows she's lost control. You see, most men fall into the trap of believing that closure is something another person gives them. They wait for that final message, that honest conversation, that moment of clarity where everything is explained. But here's the truth, a truth that a Stoic man understands deeply. Closure isn't something you're given, it's something you choose. When you stop chasing answers, when you stop needing her to validate your feelings or justify her actions, you reclaim a level of power. Most never reach, Marcus Aurelius said it best. You have power over your mind, not outside events. You can't control if she leaves, if she changes, or if she walks away without a word, but you can control how long you let it occupy space in your head. Imagine this. She distances herself, maybe ends things, vaguely expecting you to circle back, asking for clarity, seeking one last conversation to understand. But instead you accept reality as it is not as you wish it to be. You don't send that message, you don't call, you don't look for hidden meanings in her silence. You simply decide that you don't need her words to find peace, because your peace comes from within, not from her explanations. That quiet decision is louder than any plea for answers. It tells her that you're a man who doesn't linger at closed doors, who doesn't wait for someone else to free him from uncertainty. You freed yourself, and that's a type of strength she didn't anticipate. Because emotional control is rare, especially when feelings are involved, by creating your own closure. You're living the essence of Stoicism. You recognize that suffering doesn't come from what happened, but from the attachment to what you can't control. Epictetus reminded us, it's not events that disturb us, but our judgment about them. You've stopped judging her actions as something that defines you. You've stopped believing that her leaving is a wound that only she can heal. And in doing so, you send a message without saying a word. I don't need you to close this chapter for me. I've already turned the page. That's when she feels the shift. That's when she realizes that the emotional grip she once had is gone, because a man who doesn't chase closure is a man who's untouchable. A man who understands that moving on isn't a conversation. It's a decision, and you've already made it. You're unfazed by her tests. Number 5, you're unfazed by her tests. Whether it's jealousy games, mixed signals, or emotional roller coasters, when you stop taking the bait, she notices. You see these moments not as drama, but as practice for patience and discipline. Like a true Stoic, you remain steady, watching her tests lose their power. Let's be honest, women will test you. Not because they're malicious, but because it's human nature to check the strength of what's in front of them. She'll throw out a playful mention of another guy, delay her replies, act distant one moment and affectionate the next, all just to see how you react. In the past, these games probably worked. You'd get jealous, insecure, or rush in to fix whatever tension she created. But now you see it for what it really is, a test of you, not of the relationship. And here's where you separate yourself from most men. You don't engage in the emotional tug-of-war. You don't question her every move or try to decode every word. Instead, you remain calm, unmoved, because you understand that real power isn't about controlling her behavior. It's about controlling your response to it. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal pressure and constant challenges. Yet he wrote, "Be like the rock that the waves keep crashing over. It stands unmoved, and the raging of the sea falls still around it." That's exactly who you become when you stop reacting to her tests. You're no longer swayed by emotional highs and lows. You're the steady presence she can't shake. When she tries to spark jealousy, you don't flinch. When she sends mixed signals, you don't chase clarity. You let her be unclear while you stay grounded in certainty. When she pulls back to see if you'll come running, you stay focused on your life, not her games. And this is when everything changes. She realizes that the emotional string she used to pull no longer reach you. The power she once held through unpredictability, through testing your confidence, starts to dissolve. Why? Because a man who doesn't bite at every piece of bait is a man who commands quiet respect. You now treat these moments as opportunities not to argue, not to prove yourself, but to exercise patience, discipline, and self-control. Each test becomes a reminder that you've evolved past emotional reactivity. You're not here to play games, you're here to live by your principles. That's the essence of being untouchable. Not through force, not through dominance, but through calm indifference to anything that tries to disturb your inner peace. And once she sees that her tests have no effect, she knows you've risen above her ability to control you. Number 6, you prioritize purpose over. You prioritize purpose over pleasing. Pleasing, when your focus shifts from, how do I make her happy, to how do I stay true to my mission? The dynamic changes instantly. She realizes she's no longer the center of your world. And that's the moment control starts slipping away from her grasp. There was a time when her mood dictated your day, when you'd rearrange your schedule, sacrifice your goals, or put your own needs on hold just to keep her smiling. You measured your success as a man by how well you could please her, thinking that constant availability and selflessness would secure her affection. But in reality, all it did was show that you were willing to abandon yourself for the sake of approval. Now you've woken up. You understand that a man without purpose becomes a man easily controlled because he's always looking for validation outside of himself. But when you anchor yourself to a mission greater than any relationship, everything shifts. She's no longer your compass. Your vision is Seneca's words ring true here. If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favourable. Without direction, you are tossed around by emotions, by her expectations, by the fear of disappointing her. But once you define your destination, whether it's building your career, mastering your craft, improving your body and mind, you stop drifting. You move with intention, and no amount of emotional turbulence can throw you off course. Here's what happens when you prioritize purpose over pleasing. She starts to notice that your time isn't so easily given anymore. You're not cancelling important plans just because she calls. You're not bending your routines to fit her desires. Instead, you're disciplined, focused. You meet her from a place of strength, not from a need to be liked. And this doesn't push her away. It pulls her in, but in a different way. She realizes she's dealing with a man who has substance, who isn't living to orbit around her, but who invites her to join his journey without ever compromising it. A Stoic man understands that his greatest duty is to himself and his path. Marcus Aurelius didn't write about pleasing others. He wrote about fulfilling his role with integrity regardless of who approved. You've adopted the same mindset. You no longer seek to avoid her disappointment at the cost of your growth. You accept that sometimes staying true to your mission means saying no, being unavailable, or not giving in to emotional demands. And when she sees that her happiness is no longer your primary mission, that you're driven by something deeper, something untouchable, that's when she truly understands she can't control a man who's guided by purpose, not by pleasing. You've become the kind of man who doesn't chase smiles, you chase legacy, and no temporary approval will ever be enough to distract you from that. Number 7. You're comfortable. You're comfortable with distance, The moment you no longer fear losing her is the moment she feels her influence vanish. You've embraced solitude, not as loneliness, but as strength. A Stoic man knows that needing nothing is the fastest path to freedom. If she stays, great. If she leaves, you remain whole. In the past, distance felt like danger. When she pulled away, whether emotionally or physically, you'd feel that tightness in your chest, that urge to close the gap as fast as possible. You'd reach out more, overthink every silence trying to pull her back before she slipped too far. But what you didn't realize then is that this fear gave her control. Not because she asked for it, but because you handed it over every time you showed that you couldn't stand being apart. Now you've evolved. You no longer see distance as a threat, you see it as a filter. Space doesn't make you anxious. It reminds you of your own completeness. You've learned to enjoy your own company, to find power in the quiet, and to use that space to grow. Not to panic, Epictetus taught that freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. And what lies more outside your control than another person's choice to come close or pull away? The moment you stop resisting that truth and start embracing it, you become untouchable. When she senses that you're perfectly fine with distance, that you're not chasing, not questioning, not losing sleep over her silence, it unsettles her. Why? Because most men fear that space. Most men rush to fill it with attention, reassurance, or desperate attempts to reconnect. But you lean into it with calm confidence, knowing that anyone who truly values you will return without being chased. You've reached a place where her presence is appreciated but never needed. That's real strength. If she stays, it's because she chooses to not, because you clung to her. If she leaves, you don't crumble. You continue forward grounded in the knowledge that your worth isn't tied to who stays or who walks away. This mindset changes everything. She realizes that the emotional hooks that worked before the fear of loss, the silent treatments, the games of withdrawal, no longer have any effect. You don't fear losing her because you've already found yourself. And that's the ultimate shift. A man who is comfortable with distance is a man who commands respect without demanding it. You're free from attachment, not because you don't care, but because you care more about your peace than about controlling outcomes. Number 8. You don't argue. You don't argue. You withdraw your energy. You withdraw your energy. She wants a reaction. She wants you to engage in the back and forth, to defend yourself, to prove your point. She'll spark little conflicts, throw subtle accusations, or twist your words just to pull you into an emotional battlefield where she feels in control. But instead of taking the bait, you choose something far more powerful than winning an argument. You choose silence. You've realized a truth that most men learn too late. Not every battle is worth fighting, especially when the price is your peace. In the past, you might have felt compelled to explain yourself, to make her see your perspective, to fix every misunderstanding. You thought that by engaging, you were showing strength. But real strength isn't loud. It doesn't need to prove anything. Now, when the tone shifts, when drama starts brewing, you don't raise your voice. You lower your energy. You withdraw from the chaos. Not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. You understand that arguing with someone who's not interested in resolution, but in control, is a trap, and you've outgrown it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you. That's exactly how you move now. You don't let petty conflicts pull you off center. You recognize that peace isn't something she can give or take. It's something you protect by refusing to engage in what drains you. And here's what makes this so effective. She expects resistance. She expects emotional engagement because that's where control lives, when you're reactive, when you're defensive, when you need to be understood. But when you calmly disengage, when you choose silence over sparring, she feels a shift she didn't anticipate. Suddenly, the power dynamic flips. Not because you overpowered her in words, but because you showed that her attempts to destabilize you no longer work. Imagine this. She throws a passive-aggressive comment or tries to bait you into justifying yourself. Instead of responding, you give her exactly what she wasn't ready for. Nothing. A calm look, a change of subject, or simply walking away. That silence speaks louder than any argument ever could. It says, I value my energy too much to waste it here. And when she realizes that her words can no longer pull you into unnecessary drama, that you no longer need to win because you've already mastered yourself, that's when she feels it. The control she once held through emotional conflict dissolves. Think about it. How many times have you wasted energy trying to prove a point only to realize it led nowhere but frustration? The moment you choose silence over pointless conflict, you step into a different kind of power, the kind that doesn't need validation. Have you experienced this shift? Have you ever walked away from drama and felt stronger because of it? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how embracing silence changed your approach, or simply type, "I protect my peace" if you're committed to choosing calm over chaos. Now let's move on and explore what happens when your silence becomes the loudest statement you'll ever make. Number 9. You stay grounded. When? You stay grounded when she tries to provoke you. She tries to provoke you when she tries to spark jealousy, make you doubt yourself, or trigger insecurity. And you stay calm, almost indifferent. That's when she knows she's lost her grip. You're no longer a puppet to her emotional plays. You've become like a stoic rock, steady, immovable, and untouchable by external noise. It's a familiar pattern. She casually mentions another guy posts something suggestive on social media, or throws a subtle jab questioning your worth, all designed to stir something inside you. She wants to see if she can shake your confidence, if she still has that invisible string tied to your emotions. Most men, without realizing it, react exactly how she expects, getting defensive, jealous, or scrambling to prove themselves, but not you. Not anymore. You've reached a level where her attempts to provoke you don't ignite a spark. They hit a wall of calm indifference. You see these tactics for what they are, tests fueled by curiosity or a desire for control, and instead of rising to the bait, you remain grounded, unbothered, composed, and fully in control of yourself. When she sees that her provocations no longer rattle you, that you don't flinch, don't question yourself, and certainly don't compete for her attention, she feels a shift. A man who doesn't get jealous, who doesn't fall into insecurity traps, radiates a different kind of strength. It's the strength of a man whose validation comes from within, not from how a woman chooses to behave. Picture this. She mentions how so many guys have been hitting her up lately, watching closely for your reaction. The old "you might have felt that sting" tried to assert your place, or showed subtle signs of insecurity, but now you nod, maybe smile, and carry on with the conversation. Or better yet, you don't even acknowledge it because it's irrelevant to your sense of self. That's when it hits her. You've detached from the emotional strings she once pulled so easily. You're not cold, you're composed, you're not disinterested, you're disciplined. And that quiet confidence rooted in emotional self-mastery is something she can't manipulate. By staying grounded, you demonstrate that her games don't define your reactions. You've become the man who stands firm like a rock in the middle of a storm, calm, steady, and unmoved by temporary winds. And in that moment, she realizes the truth. She no longer controls how you feel because you've already mastered how you respond. That's when her power fades, because a man who cannot be provoked is a man who cannot be controlled. Number 10, you're willing to. You're willing to walk away without fear, walk away without fear. This is the ultimate moment, the moment that defines whether you're truly in control of yourself or still tied to the fear of losing her. When you show without drama or words that you're ready to walk away rather than compromise your self-respect, everything changes. This is when she realizes she holds no real power over you. You embody the Stoic truth: he who is brave is free. Most men talk about standards, about boundaries, but when faced with the possibility of losing a woman, they fold, they tolerate disrespect, accept less than they deserve, and cling to something that's already slipping through their fingers. Why? Because fear controls them. The fear of being alone, the fear of starting over, the fear of not finding better but not you. You've reached a level where your self-respect outweighs any attachment. You understand that no connection, no matter how beautiful, how passionate, or how long-lasting, is worth sacrificing. Your dignity, your peace, or your identity. Walking away isn't about ego. It's not about proving a point or playing games. It's about knowing deep in your core that you are enough with or without her. That mindset is rare. And when you have it, she feels it immediately. Imagine a situation where she pushes your boundaries one too many times. Maybe it's constant disrespect, emotional manipulation, or taking your presence for granted. Instead of pleading for change or accepting less, just to keep her around you calmly. Step back. No threats, no emotional outbursts, just a quiet decision. I won't stay where I'm not valued. That silence, that calm exit, it's more powerful than any argument because it shows her that you don't need her. You choose her. And the moment that choice no longer aligns with your values, you're gone. That's real power. That's freedom. When she realizes that you're willing to walk away, not as a tactic, but as a reflection of your inner strength. She feels the shift, the dynamic flips. Suddenly she knows that nothing she says or does can hold you if it costs you your self-respect. And here's the truth. Most won't admit the man who is willing to walk away without fear is the man no one can control because he's not driven by attachment. He's driven by purpose, by values, by a deep understanding that losing someone else is never as damaging as losing yourself. So when you stand firm, when you choose yourself over a connection that demands you shrink, she knows you're untouchable because the bravest man is the one who can let go and still stand tall. So when does she know she can't conclusion control you? It's not when you tell her. It's when you live like a man who doesn't need to be controlled, a man who's grounded in his purpose, disciplined in his emotions, and fearless in walking alone if respect isn't given. If this resonated with you, take a moment to reflect. Which of these signs have you already embraced? Or which one do you need to work on starting today? Drop your thoughts in the comments, or just type, "I control myself." That's enough. And remember, being untouchable isn't about being cold. It's about being calm-centered and knowing that your peace is never for sale. If you found value in this video, give it a like, share it with a brother who needs this reminder, and don't forget to subscribe for more content on mastering yourself and your relationships. Until next time, stay grounded, stay strong,